Hey, ErikOnPaper here, and I'm Eric, and I am finally getting to the video that a lot of you have been requesting, the Vulture from Spider-Man. So we've got Eric Manix playing the Vulture. Not only does he look like the comic art, but he's actually a fantastic photographer in his own right. I put a link in the description to his work. So I'm going to do kind of an upshot this time because I've done a lot of shots of the villains either looking directly at us or the camera from a higher angle, just to change it up a bit. So, as I said earlier, the Vulture is our main bad guy in the movie, and what's really interesting about the script for Spider-Man 4 is that the Vulture is taken an entirely different direction than Spider-Man Homecoming. And I thought they did a great job because, to be honest, the Vulture is not one of my favorite characters or villains. I grew up used to him as being this kind of strange looking old man who flew around in a fairly amusing looking suit fighting Spider-Man. But the design that we have here for this movie is definitely Raimi inspired in that it has this tactical look. The backstory being that Adrian Toomes, who later becomes the Vulture, was designing this for practical use. Design-wise, in the suit itself, it kind of reminds me of that Green Goblin quote-unquote practicality that they had in the first movie of the Raimi series. An interesting thing about the Vulture's role in Spider-Man 4 is that storyboards do exist of the character in action. Fighting Spider-Man, he's hurling objects at him and fighting in a New York skyline. And that is something that we are following to the letter. We are taking those storyboards and making them come to life. So it's going to be the most authentic of the experiences of watching Spider-Man 4. We're not trying to guess what Raimi would have had in store for us. This is what he actually wanted. Now, drawing the majority of this piece, I used microns for the outline because this is a machine/mechanical piece, and unfortunately you lose a little bit of that organic feeling in the drawing, especially using a tool like a roller, but I'm going to make up for that using some dry brush inking techniques for texturing. The way that the Vulture is presented in this movie is very similar to Doc Ock, in my opinion, where he starts off with very noble intentions. You can see where things are going right with him, and you're rooting for him. But then things change. People meddle with his work, in this case, the Kingpin and Alistair Smythe. And Toomes goes down a very dark path in the movie. And at a certain point, as the audience member, you feel terrible for him. You're going to want him to rise above it, succeed, etc. He has a very close relationship with Peter Parker. In the script, Peter Parker is Adrian Toomes' intern, where he is developing this flight suit for, of course, noble reasons. And I think that's something that works great in the script. There will be lines that Adrian Toomes slash the Vulture crosses that will immediately have everyone in the audience saying, okay, this guy is definitely the bad guy. Uh, there is no redemption for him. But then it takes an interesting turn where, despite the madness he descends into, you feel bad for him still, even at the very end of the film, which I will not spoil, but it is a dramatic showdown. Spider-Man and Vulture do have a couple fights in the movie. Now for the background, I just wanted to do something red and different from all the cooler color backgrounds like the blues and greens that I've been getting lately, and considering the Vulture suit is predominantly dark gray with green accents, I think that it helps pop it quite a bit more from the rest of the pieces. Now, personally speaking, in this movie, Adrian Toomes and Alistair Smythe do have a lot of scenes together, and it's an interesting dynamic between the two, just because they're both scientists, they're both very capable. Toomes is not seduced by money or corruption. He is still holding true to scientific ideals, while Smythe is totally in the Kingpin's pocket. And as an actor, and I haven't talked with Eric about this yet, but I'm pretty sure that he's going to say the highlight of the film is definitely any scene with him and Alistair Smythe. Okay, that's just full of crap, but I had to say that. Now the Vulture's costume is going to be primarily practical with certain CGI touches such as the wings. We are 3D printing the suit, the armor bits right now. The undersuit has already been made. But the helmet is being worked on, the chest pieces and knee pieces, etc. They're being 3D printed, and I think Bryn told me like a chest plate took something like 40 hours to print, something crazy like that. There will be practical wings. Those will mainly be used when the vulture is not in flight or spreading his wings, anything like that. And that's a matter of not only practicality and cost, but actors' safety. They're going to function similar to Falcon's wings, I would say, if you look at some of the comic designs, where the wings are capable of bending, moving back and forth, past and through one another, kind of like feathers actually would. So here I'm adding in the highlight colors, giving it some rim lighting, and trying to keep it blending in with the background gives it an interesting effect. Almost kind of reminds me of the Ultimate comics that I would be reading as a kid. And one of the things I want to do with this piece is just change it up from the other pieces. Like Shocker, the light was coming from down below, and I typically have lights either coming from the left or right, so I just wanted to do lighting coming from an upward angle just to make this piece stand out a bit more. Now, an interesting thing about the script involving the Vulture is that there was a rumor they wanted to have Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat character, be Adrian Toome's daughter. And since that was just an unsubstantiated rumor, we decided not to include that in our script, and that's something I'm very thankful about because, frankly, I just didn't see that working out. Now, an interesting thing also about the storytelling in this movie is that the lizard and the vulture do end up in a certain way working together, and the dynamic is definitely brains and brawn, with the lizard functioning as the vulture's muscle. This is, of course, not to say that the vulture isn't deadly in his own right. In fact, he does kill a number of people in this movie, and I'm not going to say who, but that's the line that which he as a character has crossed, and you know, and Spidey has to absolutely stop somebody in these movies. And here I'm going in adding yellow accents to the orange highlights, and while it looks like it's in the same color palette, subconsciously you know the difference, or you notice a difference, and it comes across as a less intense version of a highlight, and defines shapes way better than just only using it from one light source as kind of a rim light. Actually, talking about the intensity of the movie and the action, Bryn and I were discussing how we're not really restrained by anything. Like, there's no PG-13 rating that we have to hit and no studio breathing down our necks. So you're probably going to get to see more intense action than you've seen in the other movies, especially in regards to the lizard or vulture, who use a lot of bladed weapons or claws, teeth, etc., things like that. And I'm not saying it's gore fest or anything like that, because we do want this to be in the spirit and fit in along with the Sam Raimi movies, but without the constraint, we can see how deadly and dangerous these characters really can be. And I think that everyone is going to like the Vulture character in the movie or find him very compelling to watch. Eric Manix is a very talented performer, and I cannot wait to work with him. And here's the final piece, adding in some metallic highlights, and we get to see the Spider-Man 4 Vulture. Well, that was a fun piece. I love drawing the bad guys, and the next video I'm going to do will be the Rhino chasing Spider-Man. And I have a request for a battle damage Spidey and a request to draw the Hobgoblin. Now, Hobgoblin isn't in the movie, it's just fan art. And also have a request to do the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man from some people. So if you want to see a character drawn on this show, please feel free to ask and like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and keep telling your stories.